You've been lied to. They told you silence is peaceful. They dressed it up in white robes and sold it as a path to enlightenment. They told you that silence is spiritual, holy, a place to rest. But that's not what the world taught you. No, the world trained you to fear silence like death. It programmed you to fill every moment with noise, distraction, motion, opinion, performance. And if you didn't, you were called strange, boring, depressed, or worse, dangerous. Because if you're not talking, you might be thinking. If you're not performing, you might be preparing. And that makes you unpredictable. This video is not for the easily comforted. It's not for those who still believe the world wants them wise, grounded, or free. This is for the ones who've started to notice it. The discomfort, the tension, the twitch in your muscles when the music stops. The impulse to scroll, to comment, to speak, just to prove you're still here. You've been conditioned like a prisoner, taught to monitor your own silence as if it were a threat. Because in silence, you remember, you realize, you become dangerous. The brutal truth is this: silence is not a neutral state. It's a weapon. It always has been. And those who master it, win. But you weren't trained to master it. You were trained to obey noise, to respond, to react, to prove your loyalty by never stopping to listen to your own mind. This isn't new. It's ancient. And no one saw it more clearly than Han Feizi, the ruthless political philosopher of legalism. He didn't romanticize silence. He weaponized it. In his world, silence wasn't peace. It was power. He understood that silence is where rulers sharpen their tools, where generals make their final decisions, where enemies falter, unsure of what's being hidden, and where the masses remain easy to control, because they've been taught to fear the stillness that breeds clarity. So, if you've ever wondered why you feel anxious in a quiet room, why you can't sit with yourself for more than 2 minutes, why you always reach for the next distraction like it's oxygen, here's the answer. You were trained that way, on purpose, and it's time to unlearn it, brutally, because silence is the battlefield most people never enter. And if you don't learn to dominate that space, someone else will. Your boss, your enemy, your algorithm, your fear. Silence is not your enemy. It's your test, and this world will do everything it can to make sure you fail it. Let's begin. Imagine your mind as a vast empire, but one you no longer rule. Each morning, an army of distractions marches across your gates. Notifications fire like arrows. Messages invade like cavalry. News cycles, advertisements, expectations, all shouting louder than the last, until the inner court of your consciousness has been overrun by foreign rulers. And you've been pushed to the outer edges, exiled from your own kingdom. You no longer govern your thoughts, you react to theirs. This is not an accident. Silence is the original throne. It's the ground upon which all inner authority is built. Every decisive action, every true insight, every meaningful transformation is forged in the fires of deliberate stillness. But modern life has turned silence into a hostile territory. Too empty, too quiet, too revealing. Because silence doesn't flatter you. It doesn't feed your ego. It doesn't entertain or distract or soothe. It reflects, it exposes, it forces confrontation. And those who benefit from your obedience, from your constant reactivity, have trained you to see that as a threat. Enter Han Feizi. He was no idealist. He didn't write poetry about the soul. He wasn't interested in love or enlightenment or virtue in the romantic sense. He was brutal, strategic, and obsessed with one thing: control. In Han Feizi's world, silence was not a passive state. It was a tool of rule, a calculated void. He believed that power doesn't need to explain itself. It doesn't need to perform for approval or engage in debate. It withholds, it watches, it waits. According to Han Feizi, the more a ruler says, the more he reveals, and the more vulnerable he becomes. But the one who remains silent, who listens while others reveal themselves, that one controls the field without lifting a sword. This isn't just political theory, it's psychological warfare. The person who is comfortable with silence wins every room, not because they dominate through noise, but because their restraint unsettles everyone trained to perform. Silence reveals who is truly in control. When a general stands before his troops and says nothing, they lean in. When a leader pauses in the middle of a sentence, the silence echoes louder than speech. When your opponent in a negotiation folds their hands and lets the silence stretch, you start speaking just to fill the void, and in doing so, you give away your position. Han Feizi didn't see silence as a gentle refuge. He saw it as a strategic absence, a void that draws others into overextension, into panic, into exposure. And yet, in your daily life, you've been taught the opposite. You feel pressure to explain yourself, to answer quickly, to post frequently, to smile when you're uncomfortable, to speak just to prove that you're normal. But all of that is noise. Noise that dilutes your power. Noise that exposes your every insecurity to those who are silent enough to notice. You've been ruled by invaders, not armies of flesh, but armies of attention. And the first step in reclaiming your empire is silence. Han Feizi believed that speech is a liability. Every word you speak is a weapon, not just in your hand, but in the hands of those listening. When you speak without precision, you arm your enemies. When you explain yourself constantly, you surrender your mystery. When you cannot tolerate silence, you have already lost the negotiation, because you've revealed your hunger. That's what silence exposes. Hunger. Hungry for validation, hungry for control, hungry for belonging. Most people don't fear silence because it's empty. They fear it because it reveals how empty they feel. This is where the true brutality of Han Feizi's philosophy hits hardest. He didn't believe people were naturally good. He believed they were naturally selfish, impulsive, and easily manipulated, and that systems of power must treat them as such. To him, silence wasn't an idealistic virtue. It was a way to separate the weak from the strong. Who speaks first in a standoff? The one who's unsure. Who breaks eye contact first? The one who doubts. Who fills silence with nervous chatter? The one who feels exposed. Now take that out of the battlefield and into your life. You walk into a meeting and feel the need to prove yourself before anyone asks. You're on a date and fear a pause in conversation. You scroll through your feed not because you're curious, but because you're avoiding the silence that would make you face yourself. This is exactly how control operates in the modern world. You're not ruled by emperors anymore. You're ruled by engagement metrics, by social pressure, by the invisible expectation to always be responding, updating, explaining, performing. You've been trained to betray your own mind every time it tries to speak, just so you won't be seen as weird, slow, disconnected, or distant. But Han Feizi would look at that and laugh. To him, your silence isn't weird. It's power. Your stillness isn't failure. It's discipline. Your restraint isn't awkward. It's strategic dominance. He would tell you, if your enemy fears silence, you've already won. And if you fear it, then you've already lost to yourself. Silence is where your patterns are revealed. Your addictions, your desperation, your need for external direction. It's the battlefield where your true power, or lack of it, becomes clear. That's why most people never enter it voluntarily. They claim to want peace, but reject the very soil in which peace is cultivated. They say they seek truth, but they run from the one state in which truth speaks. Because truth doesn't shout, it waits, and only the quiet mind can hear it. Here's what's worse. Every second you avoid silence, someone else profits from your noise. Apps are designed to keep you uncomfortable in stillness. Platforms are engineered to reward activity over insight. Companies make billions off of your inability to sit in a room and simply exist. Han Feizi understood. A controlled people is a distracted people. If they can't hear their own minds, they can't question the system. If they can't sit with their discomfort, they'll do anything to avoid it. Buy, post, consume, obey. And so the most dangerous act you can commit in a world built on noise is to go silent, not because you've given up, but because you've returned to the throne. And now, every word you do speak will carry the weight of someone who doesn't need to. You think it's just boredom. You think it's just being social. But the truth is, your fear of silence shows up dozens of times a day, and it's not harmless. It's in the way you put on background noise the second you enter a room. It's in how you open your phone between every small task, not to check something urgent, but because 2 seconds of stillness feel unbearable. It's in how you talk to fill space, not because you have something to say, but because you're afraid of being perceived as distant, cold, or uninterested. It's not a personal quirk. It's a cultural disease. You avoid silence during conversations, even with people you love, because you associate pauses with awkwardness. You panic when a moment stretches too long, interpreting it as rejection, failure, or conflict. At work, you over-explain. You send extra emails. You feel the urge to check in constantly because silence from a client or colleague feels like disapproval. In reality, it's just silence, but your mind reads it as threat. Even your so-called relaxation is filled with noise. You binge watch to unwind, but really you're trying to outrun the thoughts that surface in quiet. You call it self-care, but it's just distraction dressed up. This isn't accidental. You've been conditioned, through school, media, and modern tech, to associate silence with danger, inaction, judgment, isolation. You've learned to see it as empty, instead of potent. And the cost? You never hear your own voice. You never notice your instincts. You miss the moment when intuition tries to speak, because you're too busy making sure there's never a moment at all. You're not just avoiding silence, you're avoiding yourself. You've probably tried to fix your discomfort with silence before. Meditation apps, journaling, breathing techniques, digital detox weekends, maybe even long walks with your phone on airplane mode. And yet, the discomfort always comes back. Why? Because the conventional approach treats your fear of silence like a technical glitch, not what it really is. A deeply embedded survival mechanism trained into you over years of psychological conditioning. They tell you to breathe through it. They tell you to reframe your thoughts. They tell you to just practice being present. But here's the brutal truth. Your mind has been programmed to associate silence with loss of control. And control, not peace, is what most people are truly chasing. The mainstream solutions fail because they don't go deep enough. They try to soothe the symptoms instead of confronting the root. You don't just feel anxious in silence. You feel exposed, like your mask is slipping, like your real thoughts might surface, and you don't know what they'll say. You've been taught that performance is safety, that being seen is power, that speaking is strength. So when silence comes, it feels like death, and breathing through that won't fix it. Not unless you understand that silence isn't a therapy technique. It's a battlefield, and most people step onto it unarmed. Han Feizi didn't seek inner peace. He sought control, order, strategy. He would scoff at your guided meditation playlist because he knew the one who masters silence doesn't just feel better. They become unreadable, undeniable, unshakable, and you can't get there by downloading an app. You get there by going to war with your conditioning and winning. You don't need more comfort. You need discipline. A brutal silence practice isn't about lighting candles or playing forest sounds. It's about reclaiming the throne of your own mind, with zero crutches. Here's how you start. Step 1. Eliminate passive noise. Turn off background music. Stop defaulting to podcasts or TV while doing chores. Let the silence in, not just once a week, but multiple times a day. Make stillness your baseline, not your exception. Step 2. Timed strategic stillness. Set a 10-minute timer. Sit down. No phone, no music, no task, just sit. You'll want to move. You'll want to get up. You'll want to check something. Don't. Let the discomfort rise. That's your enemy revealing itself. Step 3. Observe the voice beneath the voice. When your thoughts start racing, don't fight them. Watch them. Beneath the noise is a pattern. Craving validation, rehearsing arguments, reliving shame. Let it all come. That's your real operating system, not the one you show the world. Step 4. Practice strategic pauses. In conversations, stop filling the gaps. Let silences stretch. At first, it will feel awkward. Good. That means you're breaking the addiction. People will start revealing themselves in ways they never would if you kept talking. Step 5. Replace reactivity with restraint. Before you post, respond, or reply, pause. Don't just think it through. Ask, does this come from strength or from fear of being silent? This is not a relaxation method. It's a rebuilding of power. Silence is no longer your punishment. It's your weapon. Sharpen it daily. Don't expect the world to applaud your silence. The moment you begin practicing restraint, everything around you will try to break it. People will mistake your stillness for passivity. They'll accuse you of being cold, arrogant, distant, even suspicious. That's because they've been trained, just like you were, to equate noise with trustworthiness, visibility with value. But this is the battlefield Han Feizi warned us about. In his view, the world is not governed by fairness, but by pressure. and those who can't resist pressure are easily ruled. Your silence is a rejection of that pressure. It makes you unreadable, and unreadable people cannot be easily controlled. So what happens? The system panics. Your friends ask why you're so quiet lately. Your coworkers push you to speak up more. Algorithms punish your lack of activity. Society interprets silence as a vacuum, and it rushes to fill it with demand. This is the war between virtù and fortuna, between deliberate inner command and chaotic outer noise, between the person you are becoming and the system that profits from who you used to be. You'll feel it in moments of resistance, when you choose not to overshare in a meeting, when you don't justify your boundaries, when you let others speak first and reveal everything, when you hold the pause and let power shift to your side. Silence draws tension. That's why it's so effective. But remember, tension is not a sign you're failing. It's a sign you've stopped obeying. Keep still. Let them underestimate you. The less they hear, the more they'll project. And the more they project, the more you learn. Once you've reclaimed silence internally, the real test begins. Can you use it strategically in high-pressure environments? Here are 5 brutal, high-level tactics to weaponize silence without losing your edge. 1. Controlled withholding. Say less than necessary, always. Let others reveal their assumptions. The less you explain, the more they fill in the gaps. Power flows to the one who doesn't rush to clarify. 2. Delay your response. In negotiation, in arguments, even in casual conversation, pause before responding. That micro-delay creates tension, and tension gives you leverage. Make silence your default, not reaction. 3. Signal through absence. Sometimes the strongest message is non-participation. Remove your voice from noisy threads. Skip the meeting. Don't answer immediately. The silence will speak for you, louder than any rebuttal. 4. Cultivate the unreadable aura. Train your body language to stay still. Limit nervous fidgeting. Avoid excessive nodding or fillers like or, you know. These are tics of submission. Stillness projects certainty even when you're uncertain. 5. Practice the dead silence drill. In intense discussions, let a full 5 seconds of silence pass after someone finishes speaking. Most can't take it. They'll talk again, revealing more than they meant to. This isn't about awkwardness. It's about information extraction. Remember, silence isn't about disappearing. It's about dominating differently. Han Feizi understood this. He knew that the loudest ruler isn't the strongest, just the most desperate. The true sovereign sits in silence, lets others expose themselves, and speaks only when the outcome is already assured. You don't need to yell to win a war. You need to make your silence unbearable to your opponent and unbreakable within yourself. You've heard the truth. You've felt the discomfort. You now know why silence terrifies you, and exactly why you must master it. But knowledge without action is cowardice. This isn't a gentle invitation to meditate. It's a direct challenge to dominate your inner battlefield. Silence is your kingdom, waiting for you to reclaim it. The question is, do you have the courage to seize it? Right now, commit to silence as power, not weakness. Commit publicly. Write these words in the comments. I am the silent ruler. By doing so, you declare your intention. You make visible the invisible battle you're now committed to winning. It won't be easy. Society will resist your stillness. Friends and family will misunderstand your newfound restraint. Good. Let them misunderstand. Let them guess. Let them speak into the void you've created. Your task isn't to reassure them. It's to rule your own mind so completely that external noise no longer dictates your inner state. Your silence must become louder than their noise. Han Feizi didn't believe in passive silence. Neither should you. From now on, every pause is strategy. Every withheld word, dominance. Every moment of stillness, power. This is your empire. Defend it ruthlessly. Govern it silently. Expand it deliberately. You've been trained to fear silence. Now retrain yourself to wield it. Because in a world enslaved by noise, the silent ruler is unstoppable. Are you ready? Then start right now. Declare it. I am the silent ruler.